Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, we're making a skirt. We don't do many skirts, so let's do a mini skirt. For this flowy mini, we brought together the textured stripe and sporty band duo for a fantastically fun fit when paired with a tank. Easy peasy. Speaking of, if you're looking for more crochet fits, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of the best modern crochet tutorials and patterns, with more dropping weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 375 grams of yarn, and that's 835 yards if you're stateside, and the individual measurements will be on the screen. As for tools, a 5 and 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCD DIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you would rather eat a croissant or an eclair. I love my sweets, but I love butter more, so I'm gonna have to go with a croissant. Details for the giveaway down below. We are using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and Trinity Stitch. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this skirt started, we're all going to grab our secondary color yarn and make a slip knot, and we're getting started with our waistband. So we're now going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making a chain the height that we'd like for our waistband to be. I'd like for mine to be about 2 inches or 5 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And then into the chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert your hook, then yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. There's one, there's our second, let's do that again. Into that following chain, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops, making sure that we're not tugging too tightly. Let's do one more. Into that following chain, insert, pull through 2. Continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly after every stitch, otherwise the following row will be a little bit too tight to work into. We are at the end of our row 1. Getting started on row 2, which is another slip stitch row, but now within the back loops. So chain 1 and flip our work. That chain 1 is our turning chain. Then we're all going to start by finding that last stitch from our previous row and insert into that back loop. Then yarn over and gently pull through everything again. Let's do this once more. Into that following stitch, insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then yarn over and pull through everything, and that's it. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then at the end of the row, chain 1, flip your work and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. And all we're going to do is continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until we have a waistband length that can stretch. We all have to make sure that we're stretching it as if we're wearing it around the widest part of our hips. Once we have that, I will meet you back so we can seam it all up together. Alrighty, so we are back. I now have a total of 117 rows, and now we're going to seam it all up together. So first things first, we're going to fold our work in half just like this. You want to make sure that it's not twisted, and then we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Now that our hook is in through both panels, we're going to yarn over and pull through everything. And now from here, we're going to be doing an outside loop slip stitch seam. So we're all going to start by finding that first stitch into the front panel and inserting only into that front loop. Then we're going to find that next stitch into the back panel, inserting only into that back loop. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. That's it. Let's do this again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert into that back loop. Then yarn over and pull through everything. And that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into, and then I'll meet you back. Okie dokie, so our seam is all finished up. Now we're going to single crochet along the width of our waistband, but we're going to be using a new technique this time, and we're going to do it together. So what we're all going to do is chain one, and now we're going to be putting one single crochet into every side row. So getting this started, we're all going to find our first side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook in through there. And all we're going to do from here is a single crochet, but right before we yarn over and pull through the last two loops on our hook, we're going to be inserting our primary color yarn. So we're going to yarn over and pull through. Now that we have those two loops on our hook, we're now going to introduce our primary color yarn. So we're going to grab that and make a slip knot. So now that we have our primary color yarn in a slip knot, we're just going to place that over our hook. And we're going to pull that tight, so inserting it onto our hook the same way that we normally would. And all we're going to do is grab our primary color yarn and just pull that through the last two loops on our hook. So just pull through. And then once we finish up our following stitch, you will see that just the top loops of our single crochet are going to be with this primary color yarn. So let's do this again. Getting started on our single crochet, we are going to drop our primary color yarn and then grab our secondary color yarn, so the yarn that is the same color as the waistband. Then we're going to find our following side row. Now this divot is my following side row. So I'm going to insert my hook in through there, yarn over, and pull through. Once we have those two loops on our hook, we're going to drop our secondary color yarn and grab our primary color yarn, if I can find it, and yarn over, pull through those last two loops on our hook. And as you guys can kind of see, that is my primary color yarn completing the top of this single crochet. Let's do this a few more times. So drop our primary color yarn, grab our secondary, and find our following side row. My following side row is this raised row right over here. So I'm going to find that top loop, insert my hook with a single crochet, yarn over, and pull through. When we have those two loops on our hook, grab your primary color yarn, yarn over, and pull through the last two. Let's do a couple more a little bit faster. Switching back out to our secondary color yarn and finding our following side row. In through this divot is mine, and pull through. Pick up your primary color yarn, yarn over, pull through two, and again, pick up your secondary color yarn and find your following side row, which is this raised row. Insert in through there, yarn over, and pull through. When we have those two loops on our hook, grab your primary color yarn and pull through two. And that's it. We're just going to continue with one single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around. And just one quick note, if you're not used to carrying colors, something to watch out for would be to watch your tension. Because when you're pulling up the primary color, it's super easy to pull up tight to keep the single crochet from drooping, but that will cause the single crochet row to be a little bit too tight, so just keep that in mind. This single crochet row is going to be as wide as this waistband can stretch. So once when the single crochet row is all finished up, try our piece on, making sure it still fits around the widest part of our hips. So if it's a little too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. But either way, I'll meet you back when this row is completed, and we should all end up with the same amount of single crochets as rows that we made for the waistband. Alright, so we are back. Our single crochet row along the bottom of our waistband is completed. Now from here, we're going to be switching out to a 6mm hook because we want a flowier feel to the skirt, and we're now going to make a chain the length that we like for the skirt to be, so you can make this as long or as short as you'd like, but we're going to leave out 3 inches from the total length that we want because we are going to have some bottom details to it as well. So I have figured out that I want a total of 10 inches. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 28, and that's 7 inches for me. And now that we have our chain, we are going to be grabbing our secondary color yarn and inserting that chain and then chaining with that for the detail that we are going to have. So all we are going to do is once we have our total chain, we're going to insert our secondary color yarn onto our hook, and then now we're just going to chain with our secondary color yarn. So we're just going to pull through, and then we're just going to leave our primary colored yarn there and start by making an odd number chain the length that we'd like for our detail to be. Now I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain of 7. Once we have our chain 7, we are then going to pick up our primary color yarn and then complete the length of our skirt that we want. So I'm going to drop my secondary color yarn, then I'm going to pick up my primary color yarn, but before I do that, I'm just going to want to tug that tightly so that we don't have a big gap in between our secondary color and our primary color yarn. And once when that chain is tightened, what we're going to do is hang on to our secondary color yarn onto our hook because we don't want this to stretch out, but we're going to place it over here because we're not going to use it. Then grab our primary color yarn and just pull that taut all the way up until I reach my hook. Then we're going to pull through that last chain. And then from here, we're now going to make a chain of any multiple, the length that we'd like for the rest of this dress to be. I'd like for this portion of my skirt to be about 1 inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to finish this up by making a chain 5. Now that we have the entire length of our skirt, we're now going to get started on our first row. So we're all going to start by blocking off that last chain and do a chain 2, and we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach our secondary color yarn. So we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that chain that we blocked off or the third chain from our hook, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's our first half double crochet. And all we're going to do from here is put 1 half double crochet into every primary color chain, leaving that last one so I can show you how we're going to switch out our colors. Alright, so we are back. We've put 1 half double crochet into every primary color chain, leaving the last one. So just as a refresher, to close off my chain, I made 5 chains with my primary color, so I have a total of 4 half double crochets from here. What we're going to do is get started on the following half double crochet and then finish it off with our secondary color yarn. So taking our primary color yarn still, we're going to yarn over. Insert your hook into that last chain with the same color, pull through, and now that we have 3 loops on our hook, we're going to drop our primary color yarn and grab our secondary color yarn, which is the next chain that we're going to be working into, yarn over, and pull through all 3 of those loops. And now that is completed. And now for this secondary color yarn detail, we're going to be doing a Trinity Stitch. So getting started on our Trinity Stitch. If you guys are familiar with Trinity Stitches, it typically starts and ends with single crochets, but since we have half double crochets on both sides of our Trinity Stitch detail, it's going to start and end with a half double crochet. So what I mean by that is we're going to make sure that we're working with our secondary color yarn now. We're going to yarn over. Find that first chain that we have with our secondary color yarn and insert with 1 half double crochet. So insert, pull through. There we go, yarn over, pull through 3, and if it's a little bit difficult, I promise it's only going to be for this first row. Now getting started on our actual Trinity stitches. Now the first Trinity stitch and the last Trinity stitch are always going to be a little bit different than our middle Trinity stitch or stitches that we have in between. So I'm going to go through all 3 of those steps with you. To do the first one, we're going to need to pull up 4 loops. So we're all going to start by inserting our hook into that same stitch that our half double crochet is in. So bring your hook down into that same chain, yarn over, and pull through, making sure that we are only working with our secondary color yarn right now, and we should all have 2 loops on our hook. We need to pull up 2 more, so insert your hook into that following chain as well, pull through for 3 loops on our hook, and then into that following chain, pull through for 4. Then to finish off every Trinity stitch, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of those loops, but we want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly for this Trinity Stitch detail, otherwise it's going to bunch up on us and it won't be as flowy. So yarn over and gently yarn over, pull through all 4 of those loops, and then close it off with a gentle chain 1. Now that is how we're always going to do our first Trinity Stitch for this pattern. Now to do our second Trinity Stitch and the rest of our Trinity Stitches except for the last one, we're all going to need to pull up 4 loops again. So we're going to start by inserting our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity Stitches worked into. So it will be occupied, and this is mine right here. Insert your hook in through there and gently pull through. And we need 4 loops, so into that following chain, we're going to insert and pull through, and then into that following chain as well, and pull through. When we have those 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, gently pull through all 4, and then chain 1 to finish off that Trinity stitch. Now, if you guys have more than 2 chains left, which I only have 2 chains left, continue to repeat this Trinity stitch, making your way all the way down until you have 2 chains left with your secondary color yarn, and if you need timestamps, that will be linked in the description. Once we have our 2 stitches left, we're going to close it off with our last Trinity stitch. So that's always going to start off the same way that our previous Trinity stitch started. So we're all going to start making sure that we're working with our secondary color yarn. Insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through into that following chain, which should be the second to last for this color, pull through, and then into that last chain for this color, and pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and the only difference for the last Trinity stitch is we are not going to do a chain 1 to complete. We're going to do a half double crochet. But since we need to switch out our colors, we're going to do a half double crochet until we pull through all 3, and then we're going to switch out to our primary color. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, yarn over, and pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Then from here, we're going to grab our secondary color yarn, which should have just been hanging out right after we finished our half double crochets. We're just going to pull that up to where we're at. We're going to pull it taut, but make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise it will bunch in on us. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and now our Trinity stitch detail is complete. Now from here, with our primary color yarn, we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. So yarn over, into that following chain, which should be with our primary color yarn. We're going to find that loop, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And continue with 1 half double crochet into every stitch until we reach the base. Alright, so we've made our way all the way down with our row 1. Now what we're going to do is slip stitch it into the base. So just as a really quick tip, inserting our 6mm hook into our 5mm single crochets from our single crochet row could be a little bit difficult. So if you would like to switch out to your 5mm hook but only to slip stitch it into the base, feel free, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to take out my 6 and insert my 5 just to make things a little bit easier on myself. And what I'm going to do is start by finding that next available stitch into the base. I'm going to insert my hook in through there with a slip stitch to connect our row 1. Then in order to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Now that those stitches are finished up, again, those stitches don't count as a stitch either, I'm going to switch back out to my 6mm hook and flip my work. Then from here, I'm going to be putting 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we have our last primary color stitch left. All I'm going to do is yarn over, insert my hook into the last stitch from our previous row, and insert into that back loop or the loop that's furthest away from us. Then yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Yarn over, and that next stitch is back loop, insert, pull through all 3, and continue with this until we need to switch out our color. Alright, so we've made our way down with our half double crochets with our primary color yarn, and now we're going to do our last half double crochet before we get started on our detail. So we're going to start our following stitch off with a half double crochet per usual, but we aren't going to finish it. So yarn over, insert your hook into that following stitch's back loop, and pull through. And when we have those 3 loops on our hook, we are going to pick up our secondary color yarn, making sure that we're not tugging it too tightly, otherwise the detail can scrunch up on us. So just keeping it at a regular tension and pulling through all 3. Now since we're working on our row 2, all we're going to do is just place our primary color yarn in the back, and by the back I mean the inside of the skirt, so towards us, so that all of these little tail ends that we have are along the inside, not the outside, because we can't do anything about it later. And now we're going to be working with our primary color yarn, and we're going to do our Trinity stitch the same way that we did the previous row, so this is going to be exactly the same. So to do that together, we're all going to yarn over and start with a half double. So insert your hook into that first stitch with a half double crochet. Then we're going to need to do our Trinity stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch that half double crochet is worked into, pull through into that second stitch, pull through, and into that following stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Now remembering not to tug too tightly on any of this, we're going to yarn over and pull through all 4, and then gently chain 1 to finish off our first Trinity stitch. Now we're going to do our second Trinity stitch. We're going to insert our hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into. We're going to insert, yarn over, and pull through. Then into that following stitch, pull through, and into that following stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4, and to finish off this Trinity stitch, chain 1, and continue to do this Trinity stitch until we'll have 2 stitches left with this color. Now I have 2 stitches left, so we're now going to do our last one together. So starting off our Trinity stitch the same way, insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through. Into that following stitch, which should be the second to last with this color, pull through, and then into that following stitch, which should be the last with this color, and pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and remember for the last Trinity stitch, it's always going to be closed off with a half double crochet, but we need to finish it off with our primary color yarn. So yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to grab our primary color yarn, making sure that our secondary color is along the inside, and making sure that we're not tugging too tightly. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and now our Trinity stitch detail is complete. Now we're going to be putting 1 back loop half double crochet for the rest of our row. So just to get the first one started, yarn over and finding that first stitch with our primary color yarn, insert in through that back loop with 1 half double, and continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. Now we're going to be doing this a couple times together just to make sure that we all got it down. So at the end of this row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one with the same color. We finished up our row 2 and got started on our row 3, putting 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one with our primary color yarn. To finish off this half double crochet, we're all going to yarn over. Insert your hook into that stitch's back loop and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to set our primary color yarn down, making sure that our unused yarn is behind our work. We're going to grab our, if I can find it, secondary color yarn, and making sure that I'm not tugging too tightly, I'm just going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. And now we're going to do our same Trinity stitch. So this is going to be done exactly the same way as our 2 previous rows, so we're going to do this one a little bit quicker. We're all going to start with 1 half double crochet into that first stitch. So yarn over, into that first stitch, pull through all 3. Then to do our Trinity stitch, we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch that our half double crochet is worked into, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, then yarn over, pull through all 4. That is our first Trinity stitch. To do our second one, we're going to insert our hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, next one, pull through, next one, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and finish off that Trinity stitch with a chain 1, and continue on with this until we all have 2 stitches left, and these are my 2 stitches. Now we're going to get started on this last one the same way that we've been getting started with our previous Trinity stitches. So insert your hook into that last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through, second to last, pull through, last, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and remember to do our last Trinity stitch, it's always going to be finished off with a half double crochet, but we need to switch out our colors. So yarn over, insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch is worked into, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, again, pick up your primary color yarn, making sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise it could scrunch up on us like that. So what I like to do is just make sure that I'm pulling it as taut as possible. And then once it is, I just like to secure everything down, and then finish off my half double crochet per usual. Then from here, 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we reach the base. So into that first stitch with our primary color yarn, into that back loop with 1 half double, and then I'll meet you back at the base. Everyone's row 3 is complete. Now we're going to connect it into the base. Now the way that we're going to connect it into the base is going to give it the frill. So what we're going to do is pull our 6mm hook out, and I'm going to switch out to my 5mm just because it's going to be a little bit easier. And I'm going to start by inserting my hook into that same stitch that my previous row is coming out of. So into that occupied stitch, I'm going to insert, pull through everything on my hook, And now my row 3 is completed and connected. Now to get started on my row 4, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. I'm going to take out my 5mm hook and insert my 6 and flip my work. And from here, put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch until we have one stitch left with our primary color yarn. We are back. We've put one back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving that last stitch with our primary color yarn. To finish off this section, we're all going to start off our half double crochet with our primary color yarn. Then when we have 3 loops left, I'm going to pick up my secondary color yarn, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and we do want to make sure that our primary color yarn is along the back, and we can now tell that this is the back because it has all these other primary color strands back here with us. Now we're going to do our Trinity stitch. This is per usual, so we're going to do this a little bit quicker. So start with a half double crochet into that first stitch. Then to do our first Trinity stitch, we're going to insert our hook into that same stitch with our half double, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1 to complete. To do our second Trinity stitch, insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity was worked into, pull through, next, pull through, next, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, chain 1, repeat that Trinity stitch until we all have 2 stitches left. When we have those 2 stitches, to do our last one, insert your hook into the last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through, next, pull through, next, pull through for 4 loops, pull through all 4, then start a half double crochet by yarning over and inserting our hook into that same last stitch that our previous Trinity stitch was worked into, pull through. When we have 3 loops on our hook, we are going to pick up our primary color yarn, making sure that we're not tugging too tightly. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 3, and making sure that the secondary color yarn is along the inside with us. Finish off the row with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. So now I'm actually just going to get the following few rows finished up just so we can see what it looks like along the front and along the back when we have a few more rows finished up. And then I'll meet you back right before we're about to get started on an odd number row, so along the outside. Alright, so I am back and I have gotten just a couple more rows finished up from where I left off. I'm actually almost finished with my skirt, but I just wanted to show you guys what the front and what the back looks like. And then I just wanted to get started on the following few rows, even though it's done exactly the same way, just to make sure we all have it down. So as you guys can see, I have my work flipped right side out. There's no unworked yarn in the front, everything is looking pretty clean, and along the inside, this is what the back of the detail should look like. Now we should all have some unworked primary color yarn going back and forth over the detail, and that's basically what the inside should look like. Now let's just get started on the following row to make sure that we all have it down, so we should all be along the outer edge. We're going to chain 2, flip our work, do our half double crochets until we have 1 stitch left with our primary color. Now I have my half double crochets finished up. I have 1 stitch left with my primary color. Now we're going to switch out for our next color. So yarn over with our primary color, insert into that last back loop, pull through. Before we yarn over and pull through all 3, we're going to grab our secondary color yarn. And when we do, since we're looking at the front of our work, we're going to leave our primary color yarn along the back so that we have the same look along the back. So I'm going to grab my secondary color yarn, pull through, and now just do my Trinity stitch detail the same until we're about to do our last half double crochet. My last Trinity stitch is completed. Now I'm just going to half double crochet into that same last stitch, but before we yarn over and pull through all 3, we're going to grab our primary color yarn, pull that taut, and then we're going to pull through all 3 to finish up that half double crochet. Then from here, 1 back loop half double crochet into the rest of our stitches. So basically, whenever we're looking at the right side or the front side of our work, our yarn is automatically going to fall to the back, and that is completely natural because we want all of our unworked yarn to be along the inside. Now, make your way to the base. Slip stitch it into the base the same way that we've been doing and make our way all the way back down with our back loop half double crochets again. I'll meet you back when we have 1 stitch left with our primary color yarn. Alright, so I've made my way all the way back down with my following row, and we should all have 1 stitch left right before our detail. So into that last stitch, we're going to start off our half double crochet with our primary color, pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, with our working yarn, we're going to bring this down towards us. So whenever we're looking at the wrong side of our work or working on an even number, Our unworked yarn is always going to be pulled towards us so that it can stay along the inside like this. Then we're going to grab our secondary color yarn, and as you guys can see, I do like to tuck my secondary color yarn into my work once when I have a few more rows finished up, so that the two colors that I have don't get twisted. I'm going to yarn over, pull through all three. Then from here we're going to do our Trinity Stitch detail per usual. My last Trinity Stitch is nearly complete. I just need to finish it off with a half double crochet. So yarn over into that same last stitch, pull through. I'm going to bring my unworked yarn down towards us, grabbing our primary color yarn, finish off that half double crochet, making sure that this is still on the inside, and then continue with one back loop half double crochet into the rest of our stitches. From here, just continue to repeat our two previous rows with no increases and no decreases until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I will meet you guys back so we can seam it all up together. Alrighty, we are back and we have just made our way all the way around with the skirt detail, and now we're going to seam it together. So now we're going to flip our work wrong side out so that our seam can be along the inside. Alright, so now that our work is flipped wrong side out, we're going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and our back panel. And from here we're just going to do a single crochet seam. So we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. And all we're going to do is single crochet into both the front and the back panel at the same time. So start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, find that next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet. Again, into that next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, and single crochet. And we're going to continue to do this until we have our last stitch with our primary color to work into right before our detail. And I am actually right there. So what we're going to do is switch out to our secondary color yarn because the single crochet seam can be seen once we flip our work right side out. So we're going to insert our hook in through that next stitch into the front panel, next stitch into the back panel, pull through. Now our secondary color yarn should be right here. We're going to place that over our hook and finish off that single crochet with our secondary color yarn, and then continue with one single crochet into every stitch, working into both the front and the back panel until we have one stitch left with our secondary color yarn to do. So just to do this one, we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch into the front panel, first stitch into the back panel, and we do want to carry our primary color yarn this time. So we're just going to place that over our hook, and then now single crochet around everything, and our primary color yarn should be in between our single crochet now. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch into the front panel, insert your hook, next stitch into the back panel, insert your hook, and making sure that our primary color yarn is still over our stitches, single crochet per usual, and continue with this until we all have one single crochet with our secondary color yarn left to work into. Alright, so we are back. We should all have one stitch left with our secondary color yarn. We're going to insert in through there within the front, insert in through there within the back, making sure that our primary color yarn is still placed over our stitches, and we're going to pull through. Before we pull through those last two loops, we are going to grab our primary color yarn, place that over our hook, and pull through two. And now we are all finished up with our secondary color yarn. So from here, what I like to do is cut my secondary color yarn and then just tie the two tail ends together. So I'm just going to tie these two tail ends together to make sure that nothing will unravel later on in life. And then we're going to continue on with the same single crochet seam that we've been doing all the way up. Once we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that everything is all seamed up, the last thing we're going to do is our drawstring, and that's going to be pretty simple. We're all going to start by making a chain the length that can wrap around the widest part of our hips, plus some extra inches for the tail ends of our bow. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I made a total of 190 chains. And now we're just going to weave it in. So I'm just going to show you guys how we're going to weave it in. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out now. Then we're going to find where the middle of our piece is. Now you guys can just eyeball this portion. All I did was place my seam for the waistband along the back and placed it roughly within the middle. Then within the waistband, I'm going to determine which row is my middle row, and I'm going to say that it is this divot right over here. So now we're going to be taking our 5mm hook, because we used a 5mm hook for our waistband, and we're going to insert it into the raised row that's nearest to our middle row that we just found for ourselves, wherever you'd like for the drawstring to be. So it could be along the top, in the middle, which is where I'm going to do it, or along the bottom. So I'm just going to insert my hook in through there and through the other side. Then I'm going to place my tail end over my hook and just pull that all the way through, making sure that I'm still leaving some slack along the outside to use as a drawstring. Now once we have that in place, we're just going to continue to follow that particular stitch all the way around. We're going to want to make sure that it's within the same stitch because we don't want our drawstring to be a little uneven looking. So what I like to do is when I figure out which stitch that is just move a few rows over so I can do a couple at a time. Just place it within that same stitch, like so. Place that tail end over my hook and then just pull it all the way through. And I'm just going to continue to do that, making my way all the way around. Alright, so we are back and our drawstring is into place and we are all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye!